Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yasmin. If you're brand new, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome. If you would like to give me a subscribe and a thumbs up as well as the bell icon, it really supports my channel. This is a very open and honest video that I'm going to be making for you, but I hope that it can give you some insight about stress on the body. And this will also help a lot of women who have had or have this very common condition, and that is called cervical dysplasia. Now, cervical dysplasia is abnormal cells on the cervix that if they are left untreated, they can turn into cervical, however you want to pronounce it, cancer. It is caused by human papillary virus, HPV, which is the wart virus. There are different strains, like some of the strains are really rapid and, and some of them are not, so they progress very slowly. Nowadays, girls in high school get the Gardasil vaccine, which will vaccinate against a lot of the higher-end strains. I had the Gardasil vaccines, which were for some strains, but there's a new one out that has more of the strains in there. However, it kind of didn't really, it will never ever stop what happened before. So I got abnormal cells pretty much like from my first few sexual partners. I was 15 years old. I wasn't getting a period. I was really I didn't really, STIs were never in the forefront of my mind as a teenager. I was more I was reckless. But HPV isn't even a standard thing in like an STI check. Like most people have this, everyone, if you're of like an adult age and before the Gardasil, and even girls who've had Gardasil, they can get different kind of strains. So if you've had sex, any kind of unprotected sex, pretty much you just need to go and get your pap smear done. And it's so common that they just don't STI check for it. It's kind of like a similar thing to herpes. It's kind of like everyone has herpes, everyone's had chickenpox, everyone's had a cold. So if you go to a blood test, pretty much everyone's going to come up positive for herpes, right? So I got abnormal pap smear results when I was 15, like pretty early on in the stage, of life. And then it was always a thing of having to go every 6 months for another pap smear. Like every 6 months I had to go for another pap smear. If you don't already know, the pap smear waiting game between that, if it's a normal pap smear, back then from the old system, was every 2 years. But because I had abnormal cells, it was every 6 months. Eventually then, by the time I was like 19, they go in stages from very light up until very, heavy, like bad cells. So it kind of progressed from really, the very mild up until bad, so that they eventually said to me, the doctors, that you need to go and see a gynecologist and have a biopsy done. So I went to the gynecologist and with my pap smear results, and he did a biopsy. I can rest assured to you that I think that I screamed down the whole entire of Elizabeth Street with that. We're in Sydney. If you don't know where Elizabeth Street is like a main street in Sydney, and it was in a high building, and I'm pretty sure that I screamed down all of Sydney that day with that biopsy. A biopsy is when they put a needle into the area and then they draw out some of the fluid that's there, or the blood, because they need to go assess it for the cancerous cells, right? So they did the biopsy, then they told me, yes, you're going to definitely need the laser treatment. I don't know, maybe it's I don't know what the name is of it, but I had to have my cervix lasered to actually remove those cells. If you've ever had a wart on your hands or your finger or anything, they put the dry ice on that wart, and it's the only way of getting rid of it. And then sometimes that wart can re-emerge, sometimes it might not. I put dry ice obviously in your genital region. It's like a liquid, it just will go everywhere. The way that they get rid of it is by a laser beam. So then I had to go back and I had to get my cervix lasered. Once again, well, they did put their local anesthetic injection. I think that I probably screamed down all of Sydney or all of Elizabeth Street when they put that needle in my cervix. It's like I could smell the skin, I could hear it. It was horrific, right? I've had brain surgery, and I can tell you what, brain surgery was a hell of a lot easier than having that done to me. It was awful. However, I didn't get really, they said I was going to bleed afterwards for a while. I didn't bleed after it. Some people get it done now and they go under general anesthetic for a thing. I don't know why I'm that gynecologist. I was wide awake, not even a sedation, not even a Valium, it was wide awake. I don't even know. I didn't know any different than I didn't even know you could be put to sleep. That was just the only option that got sent to me on a piece of paper, or he said to me was like this. But essentially, if I didn't do it, these things can develop into cancer, right? You need to keep doing it. So apparently, like when you could look at my cervix, you could see where they have been lasered. My cervix was not like a beautiful smooth cervix. You can see that it has had this done. They don't like to just like laser it off if you're just have a light grade, or what happens if you keep lasering it is you're going to wear your cervix really thin, and your cervix is actually a protective guard to other things that go on inside your body. And if you haven't had children yet, your cervix pretty much holds the baby, like holds it up there too, right? So it's very, very important that they only really laser it in extreme circumstances. So last year they introduced a new pap smear. It's a different kind of a grade one. They test it in a different way, but then if it comes back normal, you need to only repeat it then every 5 years. It's a lot more sensitive and it tests for a lot more things. So I did my routine pap smear. It would have been 2 years later, and it came back with light grade abnormal cells. So the HPV, or the cells, had come back. Obviously, I was really upset. I got this run through by a gynecologist down at the hospital, a female one, and she said to me, don't worry, it's not one of the really, you know, the noxious, really badly strains. It's one of the other lighter strains. Has come back. What you'll need to do is like retest in 12 more months. As per the report that came back, it said repeat in 12 more months. And then, you know, we can see whether or not it stayed the same, because often it stays the same. Sometimes it goes away, and then sometimes it can progress. And then it's about monitoring it. It's usually very a slow kind of, it's a very slow thing. And yeah, that was the only advice I knew. But keeping in mind also, it was in the very back of my mind. Last year for me, if you haven't been following my account, last year I was sexually assaulted. It completely, like, when you're sexually assaulted or any kind of trauma, it does damage the pathways into the brain, in the brain. I was under so much trauma last year. It was like the worst year of my life, from the trauma that I experienced, and then dealing with the police after that, and just a lot of things. You know, it was a particularly stressful year. Now, I don't know if this particular stress is what flared up the HPV, you know, the cells again. You know, who knows? There are theories and some studies done that, you know, if you're under a lot of stress, that people even, I don't know if you suffer from like hand warts or other kind of warts, if you're under a lot of stress, that these things can come back. So that was what I knew, but I knew that I had to repeat this back in, you know, 12 months time. So 12 months time was a month ago, and I did my pap smear, the same kind, the 5-yearly one, and it came back completely fine. I've completely cured myself. Well, not cured myself, you know, we're still carriers of, you know, I'm still a carrier of that, and I still am susceptible to having it return, but I completely cured myself. And so I actually had an appointment with a naturopath yesterday, and for something else completely, but it's just, I need to just fine tune some of the supplements that I'm taking, because, you know, right now I'm taking a bit of this, a bit of that, bit of this, bit of that, and I really just need an expert, a person to kind of like refine everything for me. So I went and saw a naturopath yesterday, and she pretty much like when you go see a new practitioner about everything, you go through like your whole medical history, right? And she was like, how's your pap smear? And then I told her, like, and she goes, how did you cure it? Because there are all these videos online and these women with different kind of theories about how they cured their, you know, their cervical dysplasia, which is caused by HPV, how they cured it. And then she asked me, how did you like fix it? And I said, I honestly do not know, but it's probably just down to my lifestyle. And I honestly do not have a secret remedy that I can deliver to you right now and say, hey, take this, do this, and you are going to be cured. But what I can tell you is what I have done for myself within those past 12 months, and maybe what worked for me might work for you. One thing that I did do was try to reduce my stress, and this wasn't even just, none of these practices were specifically targeting the cervical dysplasia. They were targeting me just as a whole person, right, and other things in my life. You know, I was at uni as well. I'm still at uni, but, you know, I was doing a lot of assignments and exams, so I did have elements of stress. So none of my stress completely went away, but it was how I managed my stress. I was meditating every day. I've recently this year started doing hypnosis and self-hypnosis, but meditating on a really deep level every single day. When I was meditating every single day, I was regenerating the pathways that were damaged in the brain from the sexual assault. Another thing I was doing was making sure that I eat completely. Like, I don't drink alcohol. I do not smoke cigarettes. I do not smoke. I know in America cannabis is legal and you do what you do, whatever is, you know, suitable for you, but I do not touch any of that. The only time ever I inhale any kind of smoke is if I am out in the street. I live like in the middle of the city, so quite often I'll walk past people, but I do often try to, you know, hold my breath and not inhale their toxins. And I definitely don't do any narcotics of any particular sort. I was taking a lot of supplements over the past 12 months as well. Now, before taking any supplements, I've always said that I'll never, ever, ever dose any of you. Do make sure you check with your natural health practitioner, like a naturopath, or your endocrinologist, or someone that really specializes in this before you take anything. The things that I have been taking are not necessarily for the cervical dysplasia, it's just what happened and how I got rid of mine, and this is just probably a complete coincidence, right? I take alpha lipoic acid, ALA, and alpha lipoic acid pretty much gets rid of toxins in the body. It also recycles vitamin C in the body as well. So alpha lipoic acid, I was also taking iron, which iron I don't know, but I do take an iron supplement. When I take iron, I take it separately to the other vitamins because iron can like hinder the absorption of other vitamins. I've been taking a lot of vitamin C, actually 1 gram of vitamin C per day I've been taking. Now, vitamin C you need to be very careful of, because vitamin C, if you're taking it in too high a form, it can actually make you sick. It can actually give you the cold as opposed to, you know, help you with that. But vitamin C is an antioxidant. I've also been taking CoQ10. CoQ10 is really good for the heart. It's a major antioxidant. You can get it in its purest form, which is ubiquinol. Ubiquinol does have a much higher price tag too, so to weigh up the two, whether you want the strong ubiquinol or just take it, if you want to take it on a much more regular consistency, just go for the CoQ10. It's pretty much the same thing, right? So I was taking CoQ10. If you want it in a stronger form, go the ubiquinol. Just taking a general multivitamin as well. If you are having like excess of certain vitamins, they can become toxic. The vitamin I was taking had biotin in there for the hair, it had zinc in there, it had selenium in there, it had like a lot of other things in this particular multivitamin. And I also believe this multivitamin is what's made my hair grow nice and thick. Hyaluronic acid is another one. Now, hyaluronic acid, we all know about it as in for skincare, but hyaluronic acid is also really good for the joints. Thinking, what else have I been taking in the past 12 months? DHEA. I've been on 50 milligrams per day of DHEA. DHEA, you need to, in America, it's completely legal to just get it wherever. In Australia, not. In Australia, you need to have a prescription for it and need to be made at a compound pharmacy. Now, DHEA you need to be very careful with, and you need to do a blood test for your DHEA levels. DHEA is an androgen. For myself, what happened was, because I was on anti-androgens for quite a long time, my DHEA levels depleted, which is fine to a point, but I needed to replace what had been lost, as well as because of not just that level had been depleted with the anti-androgens for the PCOS, that one came along, done well. And DHEA, it's anti-aging, it's got a lot of other things in there too. So I got that prescribed, but you can only take it for a certain period of time. There are different doses of that. But honestly, that's it. That's all I've been taking over the past 12 months. I did take at one point royal jelly, although I didn't take that for very long. I don't know how effective. It's an antioxidant as well. It's very, a lot of Chinese people take that. I do drink a lot of tea, cut out my coffee only of a recent thing. In fact, I gave up coffee after I did this pap smear test, so it had no relevance. But I did not drink caffeine into excess either, like constantly a lot of caffeine. Drank a lot of water, ate really clean, a lot of healthy vegetables, ate like a lot of protein. But I really just believe that it was just because of my mental state and really just bringing my stress levels back down to normal. In that time after I got sexually assaulted, my cortisol levels were in a normal range. They weren't even elevated at all. So I don't even know what was to that. So there's actually no one specific thing that I can tell you, hey, like, don't do that. But it's just the guide of what I did and a multitude of things. It was just like to, the antioxidants, meditate, and just tell your body that you just don't want that you know, you don't want this in you anymore, you just want to get rid of it. But I don't know how scientifically proven any of this is at all. It's very, very bad if you just leave things untreated as well. So please make sure you are getting your regular pap checks as well. But yeah, I hope it all works out for you, because for me now, pap smear 5 years time, I can't tell you how grateful that I am.